Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the greatest player of all time in the red, the finisher. It's Serral, but facing off against the only potential challenger for that title, the Frenchman from Team Liquid and the reigning world champion. In the blue, it is Clem. A best of 5 Terran versus Zerg showdown on the new StarCraft 2 balance patch. And I have neither the time nor the inclination to do a more detailed introduction. So first, a quick word to our sponsors, you. And it'd be awesome if you could like and maybe even subscribe. And potentially support more grassroots community tournaments like this one, Homestory Cup by Take TV. And Jimmy, what are we? What? 1,477 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And while these two are still playing, I think it's almost certain I'll do it anyways. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. This is the match we've all been waiting for. With all the new changes, with queens costing a little bit more, hatcheries a bit less, ghosts now being 3 supply, drones being hunted down to extinction by Clem's Reapers. Well, we will see what the best and possibly only Zerg in the deeper rounds of many tournaments has to say about the new patch and all the big changes. Serral, throughout over half a decade of StarCraft 2, has managed to adapt to patches that seem almost directly targeted at him. Whether it's a nerf to Banelings or Infestor Vision underground when he is the only player who was really utilizing that strategy, Serral has weathered it all and continued to be a dominant force, right up until Clem proves that he's an unstoppable object. And with the changes to the game, and the big one being the Ghost being 3 supply, I'm not sure how much that's going to affect Clem's very momentum-based playstyle, where he almost kills a second drone. He's just right on the bleeding edge, puns intended, of every sort of strategy. And I think Serral is still going to be taxed. The last time they faced was the World Finals, where Clem won 5-0 in the most dramatic yet anticlimactic finals in probably StarCraft 2 history. So, Serral, for one of the first times in his relatively recent career, is the underdog. And Clem, on the other hand, is the big dog. And we'll see if Serral can keep him on the leash. And that's enough What? 2 drones dying to the first Reaper does not spark joy. In fact, in many Zergs, it sparks anger. I think Serral would go as far as saying disappointment. But with no gas early, he's not able to get Zergling speed, instead opting for a quick 3-hatch play in order to maximize his early economy. That's assuming you're allowed to get any of it. So with queens costing now 175 minerals instead of 150, but hatcheries costing 275 instead of 300, what it works out to is a few less drones in the early game, because those hatcheries cost drones themselves. Getting another hatch a little bit earlier does not really balance out having 4 or 5 less. And now the drones are on the run yet again. The queens try to deal with a good Evo chamber block, a few roaches coming in. And so far, Clem kills 4 drones, and he actually outright killed a spore crawler. And has only lost a Reaper and a Hellion. But Serral, handling it, he's at 51 drones, he's got a lair on the way. Clem behind it, he's looking at Cloak Banshee, Stim, a couple more racks, your most standard cookie cutter sort of bio follow-up. You can support up to 5 barracks or so on a 3-base economy, technically 2 base, but usually you want to actually have more options past that. And the roaches have slipped by, the Hellions in autumn colors right now. A bit of a dangerous game. The roaches may actually be able to get some damage done as the Banshee is on the other side of the map. The next one is not quite done yet. SCVs have to be pulled off the line. But now the boys have entrapped them. What, you run out of Marines? Oh, calm down, Billy. And also, yes, I don't. The Banshee comes back. Serral gets 6 SCVs and buys himself a lot of space just as the lair finishes. And this is a very important time to both knock down the Hellion count and keep map control. This is exactly when you want to be creep spreading out onto the map, taking a 4th base, adding more drones. So Serral manages to find that small time in the strike back after Clem pokes and prods him throughout the early game. Just cancels the Overseer. It's not going to happen. Double Cloak Banshee. But get off my... Well, Go tell your friends. Okay, Brenda. They really can't hear you. You don't know that. I choose to believe they can't. Okay. All right. Don't be condescending, Susan. Sorry. More drones on the way. Infestation pit being rushed out. As we get to some of the changes, which for the most part don't affect the early game too much in this matchup, I'll try to update you on them. I think a big one, also the Ultralisk, which is literally larger, back to its original size, its ultra size, or plus size if you would, depending on who you want to offend, which is actually a nerf. On top of the fact that Ultralisk now, with Ultralisk speed, now don't move quite as quickly. That speed upgrade, not quite as fast. Still faster than not having it, but overall a nerf. The Ultras had their push priority updated, which essentially means they could bully their friends out of the way and shove to the front of the pack. But with them going off their diet plan and embiggening once again, well, we'll see. Because right now, Clem already, with those first two medevacs putting the pressure on. But Serral's up to 80 drones. He's got 4 bases, plus 1 carapace is nearly done. But Clem is not slowing down on his side of things. 67 SCVs and counting. Second factory is about to complete for mass siege tank production. We've got Zergling and Baneling speed is Serral, using the roaches as kind of a meat shield to block out early on, because Lings and Banes take a lot of larvae. And even though no one's better about consistently doing all the housekeeping Zerg requires than Serral, you just simply don't have that sort of larva until you get more hatcheries later on. So a lot of Zerg players will use the roaches as a kind of a buffer, as well as having at least 3 Ravagers to be able to one-shot Liberators and Siege Tanks. But past that, the roaches eventually become obsolete in favor of the Lings, Banes, Ultras, and maybe Hydras, though he hasn't added anything on. Adrenal Glands on the way. But here comes Clem. He's got those siege tanks on the high ground. He wants to fall back to it. Clem weathers the corrosive bile, doesn't immediately back off into it, but instead stands his ground just long enough. Those medevacs allowing Clem to reposition very easily. And it's been so long, but not long enough. Well, it doesn't make any sense. I'd cast Serral versus Clem every single day if I had the opportunity. Unfortunately, it's been a lot of days, so a lot of pent-up anticipation, if you know what I mean. Meanwhile, the Vipers, they know about the tanks on the high ground, and they'll drag them low. Another siege tank jammed into the corner, though, and a double drop over to the left flank actually cancels one of the hatcheries, which, because of the odd number of minerals it costs now, is 207. You get back 3/4 of the cost. And Clem is nearly maxed out. Does he have a Ghost Academy? No. No matter how much supply, he's not going to be able to build any. He's adding on 3 more racks, so I think we're going to see 8 barracks, 2 factories, and a reactored starport for now. But Serral already has the Ultralisk Cavern done. He's got 2-2 on the way. Adrenal Glands is completed. The double drop dragging a lot of attention, and the medevac getting dragged as well. Spore Crawlers now do a bit more damage, 15 to 20. Pretty significant, especially if you're able to keep the medevacs at bay or within range. Though they have a bit less HP as well, so can be sniped off easier. I'd say this affects Zerg versus Protoss more, but it certainly becomes relevant against Terran in certain scenarios. Clem keeping those Banshees alive, such a big deal, as there's nothing that reliably shoots up, especially if he uses them on defense. But Lings and Banes, a small force, but enough to deny Clem's 4th base, as the Vipers gather energy at the 3rd. Serral actually a little supply blocked right under 200 supply. Clem keeping the pressure on. Both players almost exactly 450 APM. Clem actually with a little bit more. Meanwhile, Serral, there's no upgrades finishing. It's time to break out, if possible. The Lings and Banes trying to get damage done. Eventually the reinforcements will deal with it. The small drop, just a few Marines, no parasitic bomb. It really stands out that Serral's not using the parabomb. He really wants to just break this. If he uses his energy on parasitic bomb, he might whittle down the medevacs, but he can't actually crush the push like that. Is it time? He needs the Blinding Clouds and Abducts for the tanks, and here come the Big Daddy Ultras. Blinding Cloud on one set, Ultras charging down, chitinous plating, finishes mid-fight. Banshee's trying to participate, but Serral for now, has held the line. Ultras chewing. Those ultras so intimidating. But their larger size actually means less of them can connect with targets. But in small numbers, ooh, you gotta get out of the way. And that's why Clem immediately picking up. Does he have the Ghost Academy done? He does. He's building Liberators now, which of course ultras, no matter how big they are, can't quite headbutt them. That's the upgrade they need. Meanwhile, Queens left to fend for themselves near the hatchery. Medevac able to pick up a lot of those. Siege tanks still on the field with the Banshees. And quite a hectic game here to start. As a drop almost gets shut down, the Viper's parasitic bomb on a medevac full of Marines and Marauders. It looks like it will go down before unloading. Banshee, medevac unloaded the Marines and the Queen was assassinated. 3-3 just started. Clem was really trying to lean on this timing, but that means Serral's going to have +3 Carapace chitinous plating ultras. All right, these are El Chapo lists right now. There's no stopping them without an overwhelming amount of ghosts or liberators. Maybe siege tanks can make a big dent, but these are almost cinematic level ultralists at the moment. Medevac's coming in again though. Serral, 82 drones. Clem, 81 workers. So if you're wondering what the late game economic target is, you found it. Ground Carapace level 3, the ultra chewing through. Not even Clem gonna try to kite against that. The ultra speed just started, which is still very important for closing this down. And with that +3 Carapace done, I think Serral doesn't have any further tech. He's still limited to the ground attack. He doesn't have a Nidus, he doesn't have a Spire, no Hydralisk Den. So it is just ultras, Lings, Banes, and I guess technically Roach Ravager if you're going that direction. The Banshees are still chipping away. Can potentially snipe off some hatcheries. Another base was taken down the center. Ultra speed about to complete for what it's worth. Still a significant, it's still like a 10-15% speed increase. So, definitely worth getting, and it's not too expensive either. More Queens on the way. It was actually down to 4 of them, as they've been called into. They wear many hats throughout the Zerg army. The creep spread has been kept at bay across the entire map. That's a real standout, considering Serral has what should be significant map control. But, oh my god. And Queen's trying to get the Banshees. It's just not happening. Parasitic Bomb on 1 Viking. Ravagers, just 3 of them to knock down the Liberators. I guess 4 in total. Kiting back the Ultra. And Banelings are no match. Oh my. And even with speed done. And this is the scenario that the Ultralisk was nerfed for. Ultra speed used to be as fast as a Stim Marine or Marauder off creep. It is now slower than them. Which, there is one player I'd rely on to reliably kite Ultras. And that player is already in the game, so... 3-3, oh my, that tank line looking pretty nasty right now. +2 vehicle weapons is about done. And if those tanks are able to directly target, that could be devastating for the Ultralists. Especially with the Ghosts as well. Ultra's trying to close in, another one popped, and the rest, oh! They'll expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. Meanwhile, Fusion Core is on the way, almost certainly, for advanced ballistics and other sorts of fancy goodies like Caduceus Reactor, but another Ultra is sniped off. As Serral's still struggling to make progress, but he has most of his side of the map. Clem, with the staggered tank push, covering his own units so effectively. Back at home, the Ultras engaging on top of the tanks. The tanks taking big bites out of him, but chewing through some of the Ghosts. Does he not have Ghost Cloak? No, you can't transfer Banshee Cloak over, but 3 Ultras on their own. Easily exploderated there by the combined Terran forces, and now Serral, he's now getting a Lurker down. He's tried to progress that attack, but... oh, appreciation for Clem. He queued up Caduceus Reactor, Medevac Energy Regen after Advanced Ballistics, Liberator range. So, oh my god, these Banshees are still alive. Please. It's been 15 minutes. They've been out for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Lings and Banes crash it into a planetary, which has 1 less base armor. though it's about to have 2 more armor as the building armor upgrade finishes. The planetary does get taken down. Not that armor matters much against banelings. Finds some more shots, connects on the Ultralisk. 20 SCVs died with the base, which frees up Clem with a lot more army supply. Though he's kind of light on the gas at the moment. Serral looking to just crush through. Where are the Vipers? Right now, not looking so great. Oh, misses a shot on the Liberator. And now the Liberator's still intact. He has to waste another volley on it. And that'll cost him as Clem darts up to the high ground, drops on top, and another round across the board. Serral still has so many bases. He's gotten 8 hatcheries and a hive. He's managed to burrow lings at most of Clem's outlying bases. But I can't help but feel like Clem is just keeping all the momentum. He's able to keep so much pressure on. And still has the economy to back it up, at least for now. But there are lurkers on the way, lurker range. And the new Hydra upgrade. Nanomuscular Swell, aka Hydra Lunge. And here comes the Nidus as well. I don't think Clem's looking. Viper gets sniped out of the sky. Clem is focused on winning the game outright, right here, right now. Whereas Serral is trying to buy time for those lurkers to gut the production. And we could go into something of a base trade scenario where Serral will likely lose 2 of his bases, but Clem could lose all his production. This was the first reveal of the lurkers in the game so far, and Serral will make it a dramatic one indeed. As he's already on top of the base, he's gonna dunk down a few more lurkers. There aren't that many. Okay, 6 orbitals is pretty good. Meanwhile, 4 Liberators with a Venn diagram of freedom. All across his own main, but a planetary fortress surrounded and ripped apart by Zerglings. Serral down 30 supply. Clem actually cleans up the lurkers in the main. I don't know how many managed to escape. 0. They all escaped to the unit's lost tab. So Clem cleans up the main, knocks out 2 bases, and Serral is down 20 supply. With nothing in the bank. He's got to rely on some infestors, but he hasn't really found an opportunity. And Clem, he hasn't lost any fight. There's not been a... Get over here. He yanks it in, but even while that is happening, Serral loses a lot of HP on that hatchery. Those ghosts might be 3 supply, but Clem says that's still well worth it. 14 ghosts, 10 siege tanks, only 14 marines and 4 marauders in total. So more supply in ghosts than any other bio, well, the rest of bio combined. Though he's adding a few marines in now. But there's the infestors. Does he have neural parasite? No. Honestly, a couple liberators on Serral's side of things can be very helpful. Those infestors, a lot is riding on him. EMPing the ghosts might be the play, but he just doesn't have neural parasite right now. He needs that fungal. He's relying everything on it. I don't know if Clem will, like, again, but just like the lurkers, he hasn't really revealed the infestors. Clem knows they're there, but he hasn't made that play yet this game. And he's only going to get 1 opportunity. You only get to play that card once. Dashes the Hydras in. So Hydras are a little slower on creep, but they have the lunge ability, where they can dart forward on a relatively short cooldown. Which is something. 11 more Hydras in production, as Serral has pretty much traded out the Ultras. They didn't get the job done. And now it's Hydras that are filling that role. Trying to get some backline damage. There are the ghosts. Not sure where the infestors are now. I don't see any underneath. There's no infestors at all, so wherever they went, I think either Clem scanned them or he built a turret close enough. And Serral starting to bleed out here. 22 drones dead in the last minute. Trying to run by, but Clem has held strong. He's lost a couple outlying bases, but he managed to clean up the Nidus on his production. He's kept enough pressure on that Serral is constantly out of money. Darts forward with the Hydras, but the Liberator still going to work. Advanced Ballistics gets 4 more kills, 18 kills on that Liberator. Spore Crawler will eventually move into position. Maybe next patch Liberators can hit buildings. Meanwhile, Zerglings overrunning the front base. But right now, it's a bit of a conundrum. Like, if you go to Spire as Zerg, Corruptors can be sniped just like anything else. Broodlords are oftentimes the ultra, somewhat intended late-game option, but they're also incredibly expensive and relatively immobile. Oh, the Vipers! Blinding Cloud does not stop the snipes, but at least helps the Zerglings close the distance. Ghost gets saved even with... He didn't have concussive shells this entire time, really, Clem? Meanwhile, a single lurker up to the north side. But I think Clem has done it. He's held on all fronts. He'll clean up the lurkers. He's up 60 supply. And it appears we're going to pick up where we left off in the World Championship, with Clem just overpowering Serral with multitasking and an aggressive defense unrivaled by literally anyone else in the world. Serral played... It's hard to point at, like, a lot of little mistakes adding up. A lot of big decisions that might not have panned out. The Ultralists weren't it, and Clem claims GG in game number 1. Wow, what a game. As always between these two, Serral losing 16,000 more resources by the end. He only built 11 Ultras. That feels low, but actually, wow. Maybe it's just because of how huge they are. But what a game. Clem showing that he can play all stages as well, from start to finish there. Just keeping the pressure. The first Reaper got 2 kills. That's... feels bad, man. At the very least, and certainly wasn't a great start. Playing from that position is obviously not game-ending, as we still had another 20-something minutes, but... Alright, we're on Whispers of Gold. And no, I'm not talking about your latter career, but instead, one of our new maps as well. Here on the new map pool, / old map pool. I think we'll be seeing some of those as well. But for all the games past the first one, I'm going to try to show from the very beginning. Get those build orders down. Of course, this replay pack is entirely available. Thank you to Take TV, as always, for putting on Homestory Cup and sending out the replays. You can find it on either Liquipedia or on X Twitter, I believe. So, or you can just watch all the best games here and make suggestions. And, of course, very constructive criticisms and commentary on literally the top 2 players in the world, if you'd like. And if you want to dispute who the greatest of all time is, I don't have the quote, Jimmy, for next cast. But according to Clem, the greatest player of all time is his current opponent. And he disputes anyone else, which... So, as he said, at Homestory Cup, quite decisively, I believe the quote was, no matter what Artosis thinks, it's Serral. And
Who does that?
I think that's true. Because Serral, despite his recent struggles against Clem, who's finally kind of reached his potential, it feels like, for over 5 years, has been the favorite. Literally until Clem in the last 6 months. Through multiple patches, through the removal of the infested Terran, through the rework of most of Protoss, through so many map pools, through all the COVID tournaments, through multiple world championships, Serral has proven that he can adapt and overcome like a true Zerg. Clem represents his greatest challenge yet. The first player who seems to reliably be able to beat him, at least in recent history. And by that, I'm literally saying like 5-6 years, which is about a quarter of Clem's life. So he spent most of his childhood training for this. That's actually kind of literal, though. But here we go. Alright, first Reaper coming around. And that first Reaper, I will tell you, honestly, I'm not sure how these two players feel about it. But there's a lot of emotions that go into this first Reaper for both sides. As a Terran, you want to get every little bit. Even if it's like killing a Zergling, not a big deal. Bouncing the Queen around, not a big deal. But emotionally, devastating. Then again, many Zerg players seem to have that sort of mental stability unrivaled by almost anyone else. Serral, well known for criticizing his own gameplay as the rank 1, an expert at all the mistakes he's making. Where was I going with that train of thought? Got derailed a while ago, but that first Reaper, even though it's kind of a given, and you see it 94% of games that aren't some sort of crazy cheese, it still has that important role of keeping tabs on how many Zerglings, exact expansion timings, even knowing whether or not they went for an inject or creep spread. Like there, he snipes off the creep spread, but that keeps him busy while the Zerglings sneak into the natural. He's going to get one SCV. He's going to get a second one. Why are you building the gas up there? Oh, but Clem strikes back with the Hellions. Oh, no. 8 drones, but 5 SCV kills. Clem! Oh, my. He actually pulled his Hellions away. I think he may have select all army. And that means the Zerglings got enough SCV kills to balance this out. If he hadn't gotten any SCV kills, that was a disaster for Serral. But getting 5 SCVs to 8 drones is not great, not terrible. The most obvious yet somehow unexpected follow-up, he comes in with just a few more lings. This feels like a dark build. Except in typical Serral fashion, this is like the minimum amount of Zerglings you can commit to and still get damage. Gets 3 more SCVs, evening up the score now. And Serral continues slapping down more drones. He's got some spores on the way. Another round of Zerglings is heading out. But this one finally intercepted. Actually, stutter steps the lings in order to almost kill off that Hellion. May finish it off. Clem trying to body block. Here comes submarines. And he got it. The Zergling comes through in the end. Another small, physical yet strong emotional victory. Though I'm definitely projecting here. Liberator. Liberator often chosen when you really want to... A Liberator is the cheapest aggressive option. You don't have to get a tech lab. It's around the same price as a Banshee. And it forces a similar response to a Banshee, as well as potentially dragging the drones out of position, with 5 of them getting incinerated by another round of Hellions. And Serral keeps having to rebuild drones, keeps eating into his larva. And as time goes on... Oh, the Liberator came in again. More drones not mining. The Hellions coming around. Thinking about it, but the damage is... Brenda! How many times? Not as the crow flies. Unlike us, crows fly. Okay, Susan, you know we don't talk about that since the war. And it's a sore spot. Well, you're gonna be sore if you keep walking off creep, Brenda. Could you... Not in front of everyone, all right? Thousands of people are watching this right now. And this is just embarrassing. People don't know what to make of it, especially if this is their first cast. Stop being so meta. Sorry. Lair, Baneling Nest on the way as Clem. So far, the drone kills racking up, but not enough to slow Serral down too much. He's got a 5th hatchery on the way. He's double expanding, which means I think he doesn't expect to keep both, but keeping one would be good. With hatcheries being on a slight discount now, taking multiple hatches and then just kind of survival of the fittest, whichever one survives, to actually start mining is the one you commit to. And, well, the Queens finally knock out the Liberator. But, oh no, here comes Clem. Leave it to the Frenchman to know all about assassinating the Queens. And down one goes. But the creep spread, this map, much smaller than our previous one. Ley lines overall. Actually, I don't necessarily think that's true. The distance between the 3rd bases is smaller. But the path you have to take and the total size of the map is actually kind of similar, now that I think about it. We definitely have some larger maps in the pool. King's Cove, Abyssal Reef, and Neon Violet Square coming back are actually our 3 largest. Which is an interesting coincidence, but I don't know if we'll see any of them in this series. Burrow very quickly, with nothing else but Lings and Banes, so that tells something of a story itself. We'll have to see if burrowed Banelings have any sort of impact, as Clem unlikely to use scans except on the creep. He might be able to find an opportunity, but Widowmine will burrow. Hellbat's helping out. Clem tests the waters for a bit, sees if he can hold his ground. Not going to be enough. Picks up and gets out again. Serral, he's down 20 supply. That momentum early. I talk about larva, and that. So what we're seeing here is partially the drone kills, and partially the fact that Serral didn't go roaches. He's been reliant on Lings and Banes the whole time, which means he's been struggling to put enough on the field. Look at his money. He's got 1,000 minerals and 0 larva. He can't spend his money. His queens are pulled off the line to deal with the medevacs. The hatcheries aren't making up for it. And Clem is just compounding his now pretty significant supply advantage. Lings and Banes. Does he have an infestation pit? No. Serral's effectively all in on lair tech. He's going to try to max out and smash Clem's army and carry that across the map. Or at least carry that to get an overwhelming economy. But right now, I don't know how much further he's going to get. As Clem working on this edge of the creep, making it a lot easier to kite backwards. +2 Carapace about to finish. But Clem has those medevacs to retreat to. The queen count, he's at 8 of them, actually. Though they're mostly committed to that north side base. More Widow Mines. He's actually sacrificing the Marines. I don't know how intentionally, but 2 more queens going to be gunned down. Widow Mines will burrow. Some time is bought. Serral now down 30 supply. Clem about to finish those +2 upgrades, and after that, Widow Mines taking pretty decent bites. The Queen almost gets a fully loaded medevac, but it's not enough. More medevacs falling back, but Serral just doesn't have any way to punish them. He has no way to stop that medevac count from growing. The Queens are getting gunned down the moment they step too far forward. He just started a hive. Clem, on the other hand, has +3 infantry weapons on the way. And down goes another clutch of Zerglings. Liberator's in position. Widowmines will burrow. He's gonna try the counterattack. Serral lost his hatch on the other side. The wall and the Widowmines. And the supply drop repairs the depots to full. He doesn't quite save the day, but does it really matter? Meanwhile, just kiting back the Banelings. He can fight the Zerglings, and Serral's down 50 supply. Manages to burrow some of the Lings. But he's on his last legs, which for Zerg is saying something. 40 supply gap. Hive is nearly done. If Serral can somehow survive the next 2 minutes, get adrenal glands, and, I don't know, some Vipers, maybe? But Clem is maxed out, and there's no reason to stop now. He's already got a Ghost Academy and 3-3 on the way. Serral is supply blocked. It's a disaster. Another wave. Banelings crashing in. Serral with a big counterattack. But again, the army supply is just overwhelming. The Banelings all trigger on Marauders. The rest get hit by a Widow Mine. The Marines stand their ground, and GG Clem up 2-0. Yet again. Clem maintaining that momentum throughout the entire game. Serral with some good counterattacks, but not nearly enough to really slow down the inevitable medevac push. And that is the real conundrum, is you can take good fights, but while the medevacs are still in the sky, it's very hard to capitalize, as Clem is not going to make that mistake. He's not going to lose those medevacs. He's not going to lose those Marines. Not before already doing the damage. And at this stage of StarCraft 2, it feels almost negligent not to have something like Hydras, or at least Ravagers, to try to help with it. But Serral was on such a shoestring economy that he never could get it going. And welcome back, by the way, to Abyssal Reef. I believe this may have been in the map pool during Serral's first World Championship in 2018. I want to say 2018. Oh, I'm so old. Like and subscribe, so I have a retirement plan. More reliable than these guys, anyways. Well, then you look at their prize winnings. Serral with, I believe that was a 15-15 hatch. There are some new timings for early Zerg bases opened up with the changes to the cost of the hatchery. Are they going to have a meaningful effect on the early game? I'm not sure, to be honest. As playing as Zerg now, it's not completely different, but the details truly do matter. And the end result is a few less drones for Zerg, with the more expensive queens and the more the obligation to get spores a little more regularly. Reaper on the way. 2 queens immediately. Yeah, those queens, I think, should be out by the time the Reaper comes across the map. That was relatively quick pull and hatch here from Serral. Just making sure no pressure can really be done. Clem sends an SCV across, but about as late as possible. What he wants to do is see if Serral went hatch first. And then he wants to be this guy and block the third. But Serral went for such a quick pull that the Reaper's not quite there in time. It's close. Okay. And I think this is why Serral went for the quicker pull. He wanted to get his third base up. Interesting. So we got those Zerglings out for the SCV as opposed to the Reaper. And manages to get his third. But Clem will now know that this is a no gas time. You can't go gas and get 3 hatches this quick. Well, you can, and then you have no drones. So option 1 is no gas and potentially vulnerable to like Hellion run-bys. Option 2 is he doesn't have much of an economy anyways. So it's on Serral to maintain that drone count, get that production up, and hold the line. And it's on Clem to poke and prod and try to find efficient ways to gain a lead early and capitalize on it as time goes on. He's got the 3CC, he's got the Hellions, he's got, I assume, there's the starport as well. Roach Warren at the top of the ramp as the queens start to spread the creep around. The drone forced into a spore. The Reaper won't let up. Without Zergling speed, there's actually no reason to. The Queen's going to politely yet firmly ask the Hellions to leave. Would you die? And they heal. This map is so old that it was played before Reapers got nerfed by Beyond. I think you can find a montage of Beyond killing people with just Reapers on this map. From GSL. I remember it distinctly. Very much. For multiple reasons. Well, 2 drones said he actually killed a drone with the Reaper. And the Hellions come in, gonna get a couple more. Finally, the Reaper gets taken down. The Hellions darting into the natural. There's just a roach or 2. He's splitting off, tries an Evo chamber. Not gonna happen. 8 drones. This is subpar. Ten drones with just the early Hellion Reaper action. Did he actually finish the wall off? Is that a wall? I think he can jam a queen or a roach in there, which is kind of the intent. That's a lot of damage. So Serral does have his 3 hatch up, and he has queens, so he can bounce back quickly. And he's going for roaches, which means he doesn't need as much larva for basic defense, and he can sink it into the drones. But It's not great. Another inauspicious start. And honestly, I'm looking at this like, I'm scratching my head. Okay, Serral is struggling to prevent any sort of early damage. I'm not sure what we should be looking at for the early game. Serral seems to think that risking it and taking a bit of damage is a better option than playing more defensive and not growing economically as much. And there's the exponential growth of Zerg to be considered. You get those hatcheries up quicker, you start injecting them quicker, the amount of larvae in drones grows dramatically. And even if you suffer some losses, and losing the 4th base to Banshees is certainly a significant one, you can bounce back relatively quickly. At least that's what I'm telling myself right now, so that way, maybe Serral. The streak has continued so far. Hallian's looking around. He's done such an incredible job of limiting the creep spread throughout the entire series. And not just focusing on it, it's just something... He's so smart with his movements, both on his early units and his medevacs later. The creep spread just gets swept away. A professional oncologist over here, wiping away those tumors. Queen's trying to come down again. +1 Carapace. Infestation Pit, Baneling Nest, Zergling, and Roach Speed on the way. Serral rushing to Hive. He's at 73 drones. If he survives to get all this tech online, then he's got all the fixins. He's going for everything you need. Of course, it's quite a journey to get there. He now has the medevac phase to deal with, and the medevac phase sometimes lasts, well, the rest of the game, so... Banshees. The Banshees draw the Queens out of position right as the medevacs unload on the edge of the creep, and the Queens as far away as possible as the Marines, yet again, literal seconds from completing the hatchery. He lets it finish. The Queens! Oh, that was optimistic. You know, is it really the sunk cost fallacy if you're underwater? We can always go deeper. Well, I'm actually a bit late on the combat shield, but if the Marines don't get hit, I guess they don't need it. Delaying that 4th base again, that... It hurts. It is very rough right now for Serral. The saving grace is that Clem... well... He hasn't brought the rest of his army across. I'm coming up with something. He's got a hive done. Okay, he's building Vipers. There it is. I found something. He's got Vipers on the way. And Vipers can certainly turn the tide. All puns intended. 3 Vipers are about to complete, and Clem isn't that close to his 2-2 upgrades. He actually went for quite an economic play back at home. He's got 5 racks and 2 factories pumping out siege techs, which means quite vulnerable to Vipers overall. Baneling speed is going to finish. He actually just canceled a Viper. He's like, 2's enough. Wow. He actually quite literally says 2's enough. He cancels a Viper in order to get a little extra money for Banelings. That is how much Serral is trying to min-max this right now. We'll see if it's enough. Combat shield just now finishing. Very important to have that against this many Banelings. And Clem, the classic. But we don't wait for anyone here. Blinding Cloud on the back line. The Marines within the cloud actually run forward. And +1 melee finishes right as the Banelings slam in. And Serral's holding for now the Queens, helping to drive things back at the natural. And for now, Serral, with the blinding clouds out of nowhere, turning the fight. Clem is certainly not out of it. In fact, that just evens the score here in the supply. But that is the beginnings for Serral of progress. Those Vipers are so important. There's no ghosts, and there's no Ghost Academy. So right now, Serral has the tools to defend against all these attacks. He hasn't started Adrenal Glands with his Zerglings, and Clem is getting into a pretty devastating position on the low ground. +2 is on the way. The Vipers, good energy, Parasitic Bomb, quarantines 1 medevac. More siege tanks on the way forward. +1 mech weapons is done. working off the ledge on the high ground. Marines trying to split back. Marauders out in front. Siege tanks looking for a target. Blinding Cloud covers too. Ravagers unleash another wave of corrosive bow and knock out the tank, but Clem continues forward, stimming back into the fray. The medevacs are empty on the left side, actually taking out the units. Oh no! Clem clicked on the high ground and moved forward in a devastating right click, a single action. Every player's done that before. It's just very rare when you see Clem look human. But all it takes is that tiny misclick. But if you click, it's very easy to do on this map. Ask me how I know. Clicking right here instead of right there, and your Marines go forward instead of back, and forward is not where they wanted to be. And that means Serral plummets to a 3 supply deficit. I thought I was going to be more clever, like Clem plummets to a 3 supply lead, but I messed it up. Much like Clem with that move command. But he has 200 supply now. He's got a 4th base up. He's got full production ready. And Serral is still sitting on Lingbane Viper. He's working on the Hydra Den. He has no other tech, no ultras. He's working on Burrow, but he's just got to brawl it out on the field. Viper's coming forward, blinding Cloud on the back line. Most of the tanks negated. Banelings trickling through. More tanks even further back. Another wave of corrosive bow kind of scattered throughout. Not a great fight for Serral overall, but he's able to bite off the front line and replenishing the army. 85 and 87 workers apiece. Ghosts in production. Concussive shells being added in a little earlier this time. Viking in the fray as well. I think the Vipers were taken out. Indeed, he has to rebuild them. But, oh, from the back line! The first infester, a massive fungal, but no Banelings really connect. So, instead of clearing the field, Clem is able to pick up most of the army. The siege tanks, though, are cleared off. A lot harder to replace. He's down to 2 of them. And that means Serral finally has an opportunity to actually move forward. Clem just ignoring the corrosive bows for the most part. +3 on the way for Clem. +3 Carapace about to complete for Serral. Does he have adrenal glands? No. Does he have, well, he's working on the Hydra. Muscular augments is the first choice instead of Hydra range. Interesting. Just trying to make sure he can keep up and not get sniped off as easily. EMPs wash over. Actually missed the mark on the Vipers. Trying to gather some more energy. Parasitic Bomb knocks out 1 medevac, but there's plenty more where that came from, at least for now. Another starport's on the way as well. 3-3 now done for Clem. +3 Carapace completed for Serral. Another fungal. Not quite enough. Marauders tanking much of the damage to start. The Ravagers caught behind the line. That's so many Ravagers as well. Oh, but the Infestor on the back. A big fungal. And this time the Banelings are there to connect. Clem loses 20 supply, 30 supply, and Serral opens up his biggest lead of the game. But again, the creep spread is almost non-existent. It's right at the end. The hatchery is providing the creep. How many queens? There's only 3 queens left. He's desperate for anything. He's got a macro hatch. Very importantly, Serral expanded to the 6 o'clock position. And now both players will now be taking their macro turn. A fusion core is on the way for Clem. Adrenal glands for Serral. Lurker Den as well. Groovy spines for the Hydra range, as well as +1 ranged attack. And +3 melee has joined production. Also +3 mech weapons for Clem. Maximum power siege tanks, and soon to be advanced ballistics liberators that he's making 4 at a time. Hydra, nanomuscular swell on the way for that Hydra lunge. Serral's trademarked infestors. I think he was gliding. Should be oh, he spotted it. And now Clem has begun the almost random, oh, goodbye, infestor. Clem has 4 orbital commands, which isn't quite enough to just scan the entire map at once, but it's getting there. The medevacs, Baneling starting to connect. Not too many Hydras to threaten yet, but the number is growing. 72 more Zerglings in production, 2 infestors, and Serral starting to build a bank. He's got a lurker range on the way. Exchanging some more fire. Fires off a couple snipes. Corrosive bile's raining down. We've got a Nidus on the way. Wasn't quite the decider in game 1, but Serral didn't really have the opportunity to commit to it. This time he's skipped the Ultras, maybe not by choice, but he's kind of been forced into something resembling anti-air. EMP lands, softens up the Vipers, or removes half their energy. Overseer, conspicuously moving through. Oh, side note, Lurkers also have 10 less HP in the new patch. This was a change mostly for Zerg versus Protoss. I want to make Disruptors a little more effective, considering their nerf. But just a little bit easier to take out the Lurkers, though not a huge amount. 200 to 190 is the HP count now. But those ghosts at 3 supply, still eating into it. Meanwhile, finally a counterattack from Serral coming through. Ravagers and Banelings, meaning that he can't... Ooh, almost gets a Ghost with it. He's going to clean it up anyways. It looks like Ghost Cloak is on the way. Banelings actually connect. Parasitic Bomb gets the medevac split off to the side immediately. But Serral's counterattack is continuing to make progress. +3 melee attack is done. The Ravagers going to work. The Ghosts trying to cover each other on their way back. There's still an overlapping Venn diagram of Liberators. And Siege takes to the back. He lunges forward with the Hydras. And, well, the Liberator's still taking big bites out of this, but he manages to get behind him. And 13 more Hydras on the way. Clem down to 166 supply as Serral clears up more Siege tanks on the field. The Liberators are forced to retreat. The counterattack has still not been cleaned up. Clem has not resecured his third until this moment, and he lost 22 SCVs. He still has a very comfortable number at 71. And at this stage of the game, that's perfectly fine. Though he doesn't have the Iron Bank of Orbitals. He's working on it, though. 2 more on the way. Building armor. Nearly completed. Infestor lurking around on the ground. Liberators sharking around both sides. The Nidus still hasn't been utilized, but the first Lurkers are now in production. I think Serral's going to try something very similar and use that first Nidus to reveal the Lurkers. See if he can pick a fight while Clem's looking the other way for even a second. Impossible challenge. Liberators covering each other. Oh my god, the space shark. We saw the shark. Can we? It hit the camera. This is the most important thing right now. I don't know where it is. We'll keep an eye out. Liberators. Lunges in. Deals with them. Nidus in the back of the main. Clem? Clem? He sees it. I think. Parasitic Bomb is good. No! Ah! Jump scare! A jump scare for Clem! As the Nidus in the main will be able to unload. Maybe the shark is working for the Zerg. It would make sense. Snipes off the hatchery, but the main base is overrun by Lurkers. He needs some sort of anti-air to deal with eventually Liberators, but Serral may have lost that hatch, but it wasn't nearly as important as it was 10 minutes ago. Gutting one of the starports, the Liberators will be mostly uncontested here, but Clem has to pull back off the field. He's not even microing this, just standing his ground, but there's not enough Banelings to really make the difference. A scan, looking for infestors on top of his army or nearby. Not sure how many. How many Lurkers did he escape with? How many did he lose? Only 1 Lurker, so he's able to escape back into the Nidus. And now working up to the high ground here. Will eviscerate a siege tank and the mineral line. Yep, those are Lurkers. Clem, you figured it out. Another Nidus at the back of the main, and Clem, for the first time in this series, it feels like is losing momentum. Even in game 1, it was a mixed bag for Serral. But here, finally, even with 200 supply, it feels like Clem is unable to really get back out on the map. Serral has a decent mineral bank, though the gas is still a bit shaky. Only 1,000 to Clem's actual 1,600. But so far, there's not much on the field to contest this. The infestors are around. I'm sure we'll know at the worst possible time for Clem. Knocks out a base, but there's another orbital command right there. We'll take a seat. Vehicle plating level 1 about complete. Oh, fungal. And yeah, stay away. Infestor scans it again. Well, Meanwhile, the Niduses taken down. Serral not subscribing to this channel. Well, maybe. To the new Mass Overseer, the roguelike style, if you would. Though he does have some changelings in key locations. Only has enough Overseers to actually make sure he keeps tabs on the ghosts, but the Infestor out of energy, Banelings closing in, Parasitic Bomb on some of the Medivacs, prioritizing Micro on the ground, quarantines the Medivacs, deals with the Infestor. And Clem starting to reestablish himself. Still in the midfield. Serral just... Oh, fungal! Down the center! A huge one! And that one is enough. The Banelings roll through. A chunk of the army just melted away. Not enough to break the critical mass of Bio, but enough to grind out another lead for Serral. As Clem is struggling to put 200 supply on the field, whereas Serral is maxed out in banking with something like 9 or 10 hatcheries. Working on hatchery number 10 right now. Not all. He has 2 macro hatches, maybe 1. He has pretty much his side of the map, is the summary. And a little bit of Clem's at this point. Another Nidus near the third as he chases this down. The Lings overrunning the tanks. This is not a planetary fortress. There are 27 SCVs here as well. Well, there were 27 SCVs here. 21 dead. A Nidus to the left flank will knock out and dislodge the third base, which is almost mined out at this stage. Another 68 Zerglings in production. Couple dozen Banes as Clem uses every last mineral and most of the gas. Whereas Serral's up to 4,200, 1,200 in the bank. The Hydras and Lings looking to close in now. Overrunning. And the Parasitic Bombs. EMPs come in. Yanks out a Liberator. Another one as well. The Hydras looking for an opportunity, but Clem getting overrun. Dashes in. Knocks out a couple more libs. 27 SCVs dead. And Clem just taps it out. He sees the writing on the wall. And it's clearly not getting any easier for him. Maybe a bit on the early side, but, I mean, Clem knows when he's lost the momentum. And that was the, well, that was like the last mining base, and Serral has the entire other half of the map. Serral finally breaks the streak. I don't know how many games, at least 10 in a row. But Serral strikes back. It wasn't easy. But he manages to claw back into it. And now we have a series. What a game. Serral gets a little bit of space to work with. He's able to land a fungal or two. That rush to the Vipers were everything. At the very start, getting the blinding clouds in that first fight and saving his 4th base location, despite a very rocky start, he ends up coming out ahead. And now still match point. But we're going into Amygdala. So no matter how you feel, these two still the very top players in the game. And of their races especially. Serral ended up being pretty much the only Zerg to have real success in Homestory Cup. But that's not necessarily a story we haven't seen. I said in the most convoluted possible fashion. But again, thank you to Homestory Cup for, well, existing. Make sure to check it out and check out their events whenever you have the opportunity. I hope to check it out at some point in the future yet again. In person, that is. I know, scary, but if you do enjoy the commentary, it'd be awesome if you could smash that like button and subscribe. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really think it does anything, the actual act of doing that, but somewhat subconsciously, I think when you interact with a video, you're more likely to watch a little bit longer. As now you've participated, you're part of it, one way or another. Living vicariously the best StarCraft 2, just like me. With these youngins, especially Clem, and their ridiculous gameplay. So, I do hope you enjoy. I hope I make your days a little bit better, and I hope to continue doing so far into the future. SC2 has a... I'll tell you this. Even if there are no major official tournaments or any sort of World Cup or something like that, there will still be StarCraft 2 for the foreseeable future. No matter how many times the intern screws up a patch update or the Balance Council makes some interesting decisions. You still have the best real-time strategy game, the best esport. Though I like watching Rocket League for different reasons. That's unrelated. So we're not going anywhere. Well, there's still good games for the fans. And if there are other games with good games, well, maybe we'll check them out as well. But it's been 14 years and I'm getting pretty set in my ways. So thank you for watching. Feels like we need that buffer sort of commentary after that last game. Serral finally able to strike back, but it did feel like an almost perfect storm. He got everything he needed. He got the initial Vipers, he got the Fungals, he got the Nidus, and managed to find the timings on the field. We'll see if Clem switches it up at all. If you're Clem, honestly, that's one of those games that just comes down 100% to execution. Did he deny the third base for that long? Oh my. Yeah, Serral just takes the outside third. Of course the SCV was there. Third command center on the way. Reaper gonna make sure of things. This base is... So, taking the triangle base is usually the play in most matchups on most maps, as it's a little further away from your opponent, and if you can cover this base, you can usually cover your main from the same angle. The risk of expanding out towards this direction is being closer to your opponent, especially here where rush distance is pretty long, as well as opening up that left side of the map potentially to drops and other sort of harass without having your units more consolidated. It's usually not a huge difference, but it can dictate the style of play from both sides. And again, Serral's going to opt for the roaches. Just seems to be the mainstay to start. Especially the queens costing just a little bit more. Maintaining that larva count. We saw it last game. Serral did not have enough queens to inject all his hatcheries throughout most of the game. I mean, Clem saw to that. So, macro hatches and being as conservative as possible with that early larva is absolutely critical. Is that an armory? Do you know what year it is, Clem? Do I know what year it is? Yes. Well, it doesn't matter what year it is because Hellbat pushes have not been good probably since Heart of the Swarm. Very quick, kind of all-in Hellbat pushes, I could argue, okay, maybe. But 3 base, like 3 CC Hellbats, the counter is queens. Like most early game things, but it is an odd choice. And that might be part of the reasoning, where you're not expecting a Hellbat push because nobody does a Hellbat push. Oh, this map has Zerg rocks, which you can actually prevent from bleeding out with creep, fun fact. But otherwise it takes 8 minutes and the rocks are taken down naturally through, I don't know, they just dissolve off a creep. Alright, Marines, Hellbats, but that's plenty of roaches. Guns down 1. The medevac is vulnerable. The Zergling's trying to trickle back, as obviously they're not the ideal choice to deal with the Hellbats. Gets 1 queen. The Marines are coming in to deal with it. He's gonna clean up the Hellbats. The Marines... slurps them up into the medevac, but overall, well, that... not really getting much done. He did have stim for the Marines. He's gonna pick up a few more drones here, actually. But overall, not a resounding success. He kept the medevac alive. He still has Marines in it, and that's like 80% of Clem's gameplay. So I don't think losing the Hellbats was that big a deal. But it feels like kind of a mediocre build, just in general. I do think it is Clem just throwing it out there and seeing if it sticks, but doesn't end up landing. Infestation pit already on the way. Clem is continuing to move forward. He's got more marine. Well, he's keeping the queens back. Serral's going up to 72 drones. He doesn't even have roach speed. The queens are a little out of position. And oh no. Well, this is actually pretty rough here. 11 drones dead. And the medevacs keep going. And this is another part of the reason, like, this angle is easy enough for the medevacs to just continue slipping in and out. But let's be honest, no matter what side of it was, I think Clem would be using this sort of strategy, so. Serral weathers it. The medevacs, one of them cornered, but able to fly over the edge of the world, or whatever the space station we're on here, and slip back home. Hive is already on the way for Serral. Learning his lesson that one game he didn't get it quickly. The Vipers are needed. And then maybe Lurkers later on, but really just the Vipers standing out as the most important unit to have to deal with this mid-game Terran. The rocks will bleed out very dramatically and open up the center of the map. There are some more conventional rocks on other sides of it, but now you can slip through the center more easily. Corrosive biles scattered, but the medevacs easily pick up. Back to the main. The queen taken down. And oh my, sacrificing some of the marines for the banelings. Not even baneling speed done yet. Clem coming in again, drawing a lot of the supply back while he uses the medevacs at the front. Classic dual prong pressure, pulling the Zerg apart. Siege tank on the edge of the creep here. Serral just gonna jump on it. Try to smash this before it gets too much of a foothold. There's 2 tanks on the high ground though. Doesn't quite kill that first tank. Oh my, oh. A lot of extra damage being dealt. And meanwhile, the double drop is unloading outside the 4th base. Corrosive belt, but there's 2 tanks on the high ground. Serral doesn't know. I'm lying, he has a changeling there. He did know, but it didn't matter. They still helped. Serral's down 20 supply already. A drop comes in again. And Clem is tearing him apart. Oh no, none of that hive tech kicking in. I don't think he has a Viper on the field. He just has hopes and dreams, and currently they're being gunned down one by one. The siege tanks. Serral now out of vision, out of options. He's low on supply, and he doesn't have any games left to give. The bio is darting in again, another siege tank. The pressure stays on, and GG. Clem claims yet another victory over the finisher. Quite a decisive one at that. Serral struck back, but the one game Serral takes is, it felt like a perfect storm, whereas Clem taking command of the series throughout. And even on Abyssal Reef, it looked like Clem's game to lose for much of it. So Clem still clearly has the advantage over Serral. Serral putting up a dramatic fight. And I actually want to talk a little bit about the takeaways for the new balance patch. It seems like the Ghost nerf, not particularly impactful. We saw it make a pretty big difference on Abyssal Reef. Ultralisk, though, with their size being back to what they are, as well as being slower, Serral not even opting for him again. I think trying it out, it seemed like a great opportunity. He's ahead economically on the open field. Can't make it work. The Ultra is still, I think, relegated mostly to the units lost tab, and for when you're so far ahead, you can pretty much build anything and still win. But we will see. Clem with a solid 3-1 victory and continues his dominance over the best player of all time, as claimed by Clem and most people. Still a pretty great series. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you to Take TV and Homestory Cup. Thank you for watching. If you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So thank you. Hope it made your day a little bit better. I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.